The new solo victory cups just started last week and they're going to be going on for like another 7 weeks. This is a great chance for people that have never gotten earnings before to break through and finally get some. Today, I'm going to be giving you some advice and breaking down some games that should help you in the next solo victory cup. Let's hop into it. First off, obviously you should be looking to get a hammer in every single game. If you go into endgame with a hammer, your chances of winning are like 10 times higher than without it. Most pros, pretty much every pro honestly, is going to be W keying until they get a hammer. Now this is important to understand. Everybody is looking to take fights to get a hammer. So if you're in the mid game and you already have a hammer, you should probably try to keep that a secret. If somebody's nearby, they don't have a hammer and they hear you use your hammer, there's a good chance they're going to be chasing you and griefing you to try to get your hammer. That's why most of my rotates I was doing by foot rather than hammering. This is mainly for the first and second zones. The point is, have a hammer, keep it a secret. Don't have a hammer, try to get one. The loadout you should probably be looking to carry is a Thunder shotgun, that's the best shotgun, and then either a pistol, SCAR, or twin mag SMG. Storm Surge is not that bad in these games. It does get activated, but you don't need that much damage dealt to survive Surge. So if you use a pistol, that was what I was mainly rocking, you should be able to get your Storm Surge tags no problem. Something that's really important is making as many endgames as possible. One piece of advice to do that is don't get too greedy with loot. If you have what you need for endgame, and there's other people still at your location, just take that loot and get out of there. There's no reason to get greedy for an extra fight off spawn, extra loot off spawn, when there's other people around that could end that game. You need to take advantage of every single game that you get the loot you need. The only time that I would actually keep looting off spawn when I have what I need is if nobody else is around. But for the most part, I would be rotating really early in these games. You may have already caught on to this, but if you haven't, listen up. If you see people that are already in the safe zone rotating to the other side of the zone, that probably means that they have forecast on and the zone is pulling far. Now let's break down one of my solo final endgames. If you haven't already seen it, I posted the whole video on my main channel, JivanTV. Now this first game starts out with just a 50-50 off spawn, and while I'm rotating, I managed to find a hammer, so W's. The rest of my rotate while I'm looting, I try to avoid using the hammer to avoid drawing attention. It's not until this point here that I actually used the hammer to get away from this guy. The reason is, he was gonna fight me regardless, so I figured I might as well just hammer away. Later on, as I'm rotating to the next zone, there's somebody that's camping in the bush who gets a fry on me. In this situation, I can't hammer away because he built up, so he would have had good angles on me hammering. Lucky for me, this guy just jumped in my box in 50-50. As I'm rotating here, somebody's hammering over top of me and I get a good shot on him and then get a major fry with the pistol. When you get a health advantage this big in a fight, there is no way you don't push that. I just hammered over to him, looked to get in as quick as possible, and just kept the pressure on so he couldn't heal. I'm winning that fight no matter what with that big of a health advantage. And that was pretty much my entire mid game, rotating early, avoiding using the hammer, yada yada. As I'm hammering to the 5th zone here, things get a little bit awkward. I accidentally land in a lot of congestion. So in this situation, I'm just trying to make space to get myself in a comfortable spot where I'm not going to get keyed. I'm building ramps over my head to block my back when I know there's an enemy wall behind me, and I make like 3 boxes and then chill. Usually in this zone, I try to chill in 2 or 3 boxes. Gotta make sure you have room to breathe in this zone, otherwise if somebody attacks your wall, you're not gonna have room to move. And as soon as you rebox, you're gonna get sprayed at. So making boxes earlier can help prevent you from getting lobby focused. On this first hammer, I just decided to use aerialist and land on an upper layer. Just a quick pit stop on the rotate. Notice how I flip my cone up while I'm looking at back edge zone here. That way if somebody from front edge sprays me, I have double layers of protection. As I'm doing this next hammer rotate, I use my glider redeploy because that's a really good combo. When you glider redeploy, it helps you pick a better layer while landing. So I find the layer I want, make a box, and I'm getting sprayed at here. I notice myself starting to overbuild a little bit, so I tell myself in my head, I'm like, calm down, like, he's done spraying at you. So then I just chill in this box and wait for the next rotate. In this first moving zone, you really want to try to avoid making any risky plays. Just play your hammer and play your mats. There's no reason to go for anything crazy here, especially since everything relies on the wind. You don't need kills until you need mats. On this hammer, I get full stuck on this guy's wall. Luckily, I caught him off guard with that. This happens a good amount in the hammer meta, so whenever you're hammering, just be aware you might land in somebody's box, so be ready to take shots. Now notice how I get dropped down here. This is one of the things that people don't understand about the hammer meta. Start paying attention to when you get dropped down. In this situation, look at the zone. I was on the very back edge of zone on like a mid-ground layer. So the kids on low ground are obviously going to try to hammer front. The way you can avoid that is just hammer a bit early. Only reason I waited so long here is because I was getting the mats. Now, when I land off this hammer, I'm in an awkward spot. So look at how I tarp away. I block the angles where I know enemy builds are until I can eventually make a full box that I own everything. I never stop in somebody else's builds unless I have no mats. Once I get in my own box, I start scouting where the zone is pulling, check all my ammo, check my heals, check my mats, and then look back edge zone. I don't need anything at this point, so I'm just spraying people a little bit, griefing them, but really focusing on surviving. Now, right here was a little bit of a choke. Notice how the zone is getting pretty close to me. I forgot that I need to rotate earlier in this situation. You don't even need to necessarily rotate early, just be ready to rebuild under you so that you don't get chopped out. Or be ready to hammer once you hear hammers going off underneath you. The one thing you don't want to be doing is what I was doing there, have my gun out, getting aggressive on people when I'm that close to back edge zone. But as soon as I get dropped out, I do the right thing, I block my back and then look to hammer. This time I position all the way on low ground, that way nobody can chop me out. If you're on the lowest layer, nobody can drop you down any further. But your build still can break and then people above you can fall in your box. You're going to notice that happen here. I low-key like this, and I think it's a good way of getting refreshes, being on low ground, and then looking around you for people that get chopped out from other hammers. That's exactly what happened there, and then I just popped some heals and look to rotate front. Now right here is something a little bit sketch. Notice how I land on a mid-ground layer where there's already a lot of builds. It's important to take that extra precaution like I'm doing here, where I protect my angles from those builds as if somebody's definitely in there. There may be nobody in those builds, but taking the extra precaution in solos is really important. The only thing is, I should have either been building in wood while doing this, or I could have just hammered front again. So if you're ever in this situation, catch yourself overbuilding before you waste all your mats. Because literally right as I find my box that I'm gonna chill in, I get hammered down, and all of those mats were wasted for nothing. But whenever I get hammered out, I make a box and then immediately look to hammer. When I land here, notice how there's other players around me and how I flip my cone up to block those angles. When I'm looking to pop heals, especially when I'm in a wood box, I always try to flip my cone up like this to block the angles of most danger. I get hammered out again right before I can get that big pot off. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to low ground here. That way nobody can chop me out. This time, I managed to get the big pot off, and I'm only one box out of the zone, so I make that box and claim the walls that the enemies had. I do it safely though, from far away. You don't want to be like up close pickaxing that wall or they're definitely going to edit on you. Now right here, I kind of need to start looking for that game-winning refresh. So I literally just look back edge zone and look for players that are getting dropped down from hammers. I saw this player get dropped down and I'm like, they're not going to expect to get shot down again. This is a really good way to look for refreshes, I'm telling you. After I get all those mats, I kind of missed some and choked and then took a little storm. But I hammered to the front edge of zone. I should have landed in the bush because I'm pretty sure I had bush warrior. That would have been crazy. But because I got cracked, people start immediately looking to fight me. Everybody's looking for that game-winning refresh at this point, so I just back up, they start fighting each other, and I'm able to get some heals off. Now right here is where I ruined the game. This whole thing is winnable at this point. I set myself up pretty nicely. But when I choose to stay on high ground here, there's two things I could have done. First off, I could have just gone all the way to low ground instead of high ground and looked to box fight there. But when I choose to land on high ground here, I should have been looking at height. Height is definitely low on mats at this point, so I could have probably killed high ground and won that game. But I choose to drop on this guy's wall. I tried to place a ramp in, but the ramp just didn't place. And then I missed my pump shot. Definitely a winnable game, but it is what it is. Now, like I said, if you want to see the other games, there were actually some other really good ones. That video's on my main channel. I hope this helps you guys out. More videos coming soon. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.